Hello, greetings to you and a happy new year. Welcome to the year 2022. And I must begin by apologizing and saying it's actually unfortunate when your computer chooses when to update itself. So you do not have a choice but to wait for it to finish. And that is why I'm starting this episode late. I would like to apologize for that. It's really a beautiful thing to be back online and on the program Let's Talk Missions. My name is Mwat Asedeh. I have missed being here for a while because of very many several reasons. But I'm grateful that I am here today, and I hope that you all had a wonderful break. You all had a wonderful Christmas and a beautiful New Year celebration. My hope and anticipation and desire is that 2022 is going to be that year that we have all been waiting for, the year that we have all been planning, and when all of our dreams are going to come true. So, welcome to 2022. And my honest prayer is that 2022 is going to be a year of unprecedented heights, new perspective, new ideas, new concept for you in your family, in your work, in your ministry, and in whatever you do. So I'm really glad to be here. I'm so excited. You can see me smiling from ear to ear. It's a sign that I am really, really glad that I am able to get back on the program and especially to get my computer working this morning. So greetings to you once again from Replica Church. We do this because you matter to God. Today, I wouldn't want to take too much of your time, but to welcome you to 2022 and say, when there is hope, remember a living dog is better than a dead lion. It's a statement. You might want to contrast that. You might want to think about it in other ways, but hey, I think it's best that we are alive and we've made it. There is hope and there is joy. There is just hope in being alive. So hold on to that, and 2022 is going to be really good for us all. Today, I want to just, as we normally do here in the program, to spark conversation, to bring about a talk, to provoke thoughts, to make you disagree, to make you want to, share your opinion about it. Today, I want to be reflecting on or just asking questions, some rhetorical, some literal, some, you know, just thought provoking questions about who needs a pulpit to do missions, especially now in 2022. So, literally, who is it that needs a pulpit to be able to do ministry in 2022? Pastors, missionaries, or maybe preachers? Are they different from pastors? Who needs a pulpit in 2022? Or who needs a pulpit to do ministry? Rhetorically, does anybody really need a pulpit to be able to do missions? Yeah, people do need pulpits. Pulpits are a very important part of Christian ministry. The pulpit. It doesn't matter if it's metal, wooden, concrete, on the side, in the middle, whichever or wherever it is located, it's an important part of the ministry, public ministry, public ministry of preaching the word. So it's important. It's a very needed piece in the church setting or even outside. I mean, there are raised platforms. I remember the story of Ezra when the Israelites were returning to rebuild the city and they needed to hear the word of God. And they raised a platform, a wooden one, for Ezra to stand up tall and speak to the people, so that his voice can be able to be heard all over. I must imagine there are thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people who were gathered. So for him to be heard, they had to raise a platform high for him. But do we all need that to do ministry? Have you ever heard pastors say things like, I'm not going to allow him on my pulpit? I'm not going to allow this person on my pulpit. No, I won't allow him. I would like to create that. Some pastors will say, I mean, with that hair, I will not let him step on my pulpit to preach. You know, if you've heard that statement before, what does it create? What notion does it make you feel? What notion does it bring to your mind when you hear people say stuff like that? Please feel free to share in the comment section or send it as a question after you've listened. Please, let's engage in this conversation. But I chose to reflect on this because there are there are quite a lot of people who would not allow others on the pulpit, and there are some yardstick. And I believe me, I understand when it comes to the issue of respecting the pulpit, because not everybody is going to want to be. That is a place of calling. That is a place. That is someone's office. That is you're supposed to dignify it, and there are ways you're supposed to apply depending on your tradition, depending on your culture, depending on your, religious tradition. If you're Roman Catholic, there are ways you're supposed to appear on the pulpit. If you are evangelical in the African setting or evangelical in the non-African setting, there are ways you should appear on the pulpit. If you are Protestant, whatever it is that you are, your tradition is, I'm sure there are expectations, for you to appear. But then when you hear some people take it to the next level and say, I'm not going, holding on to the pulpit as though it is the only place upon which you can do ministry, it makes you start to wonder, why are these people holding so tight onto the pulpit as though it is the only place to do ministry? I know of an older man and older women. Let me say this directly. In my local church where I grew up, you know, I'll leave you to do that research. But these people are committed. I was a part of them at a point, are committed to cleaning the church before anybody wakes up. Before every Sunday service, these old and tired women and men will come into the church, and some youth too will come into the church, clean it up, make sure it's dust free, make sure it's well arranged, make sure the pulpit itself is clean for whoever is going to preach. And some of them, as they do that, before they do it, they pray, or as they pray in their hearts, and a lot of spiritual things go on as they do that. And they're done. They're back to their homes. You don't even know them. You don't even hear them. They don't even get appreciated publicly in a lot of ways. Should we call that a ministry? Should we call that missions? Do they need a pulpit to do that? Maybe they need a pulpit to give them permission to do it. Or do they really need the pulpit to be effective? Do they really need the pulpit to be effective? You see, when we put the pulpit too much into a place of too much honor, it deserves an honor. This is a pulpit. Well, it's not a pulpit, it's somewhere in my living room that I'm using. But the stage, the platform upon which you function in your area of calling, that is your pulpit. Do not get distracted by the competition around trying to be like any other person who stands in front of people and wears a necktie and suit or whatever code of dressing it is that they wear to minister to people. Don't let that be the yardstick of judging if your ministry is effective or not. That has derailed and misled a lot of people with potentials in doing other things into thinking they need to be like others to function effectively. So, who needs a pulpit to do ministry? Do not be confused when the apostle says, no, we cannot leave the ministry of prayer and the word and attend to those on the table. Those guys were not saying that ministry is not important. If it wasn't, they wouldn't have prayed and committed a lot of people to do it. It is an important part of the ministry. It is an important part of the growth of the kingdom of God, especially at that time. It is, however, about understanding that this is what they feel they have been called to do at this time, and hence will not want to let go of it because there won't be anybody to take over when they return to something else. So it's important that everybody stays to their area of calling. It is important that we discern what it is, what our pulpits are, and we do not have to compete about who goes on the pulpit on Sunday or who doesn't, as a show of importance, as a show of significance, as a show of value. When you understand what your pulpit, where your pulpit, or how your pulpit functions, it gives you a lot of peace of mind when a preacher says he will not welcome you to the podium to preach. It gives you peace of mind because you stop to compete when somebody feels that their ministry is much more important and of greater value than your own. It gives you peace of mind because you are able to know that you do not need to be out in the front to be called a minister. Being effective as a minister takes the courage of discovering what your pulpit is. So, who needs a pulpit to do ministry? If your calling, I dare say, relates with reaching out to the group, to a group, whether small or big, on a stage or as it relates to the public, then your pulpit probably it's a raised platform. Then you have to reach out to people in public, and that will demand that you reach them in a certain way at a certain time in a in a certain format that is understandable to their culture or to their tradition or to their understanding of what the faith is. This is a new year, and there are a lot of resolutions that have been laid on the table. I am not unaware of the fact that some of them are going to die within the first week, within the first month, within the first three quarter of the year. However, I am also optimistic of the fact that a lot of them are going to survive. Many will make it past the first 6 months, many will make it up to the end of the year. My desire is that to challenge or to encourage and to motivate whoever is listening, or if you're watching or joining here, my honest anticipation and desire is that you will be able to this year make it clearer, understand clearly, and not pick an offense when you are refused a platform to preach. However, that you will seek to discover much more of yourself and of your calling, because that is huge. As far as this ministry is concerned, as far as missions, as far as living as a Christian is concerned, discovering of yourself is significant. And it is quite unfortunate that so little of a talk, or in some cases thought, is given to that idea of self-discovery in the field or in the area of living with a purpose, living as a missionary. Because when you are aware of your mission, when you are aware of your life purpose, when you know who you are deeply, when you're able to understand more of yourself, because not everybody knows all of who they are, but when you are able to put more into self-discovery, you have a greater level of peace of mind, of knowing that no, this is not what I am to go after. This is not what I'm to expend my energy trying to compete with. This is not what I'm going to seek to try to be like, because I am entirely somebody different. It saves you a lot of energy. It saves you a lot of stress. It saves you a lot of what maybe competition, because you are different and unique. So I dare to say, even that fulfilling God's mission ought to begin from the ground of self discovery. The fulfillment of the mission that God has given you is not far away from what God has placed in your heart as a desire. Don't get me wrong. If you feel the call, make sure you have discerned if it is to reach out to the public because it is a call. There are those who are being called to stand on the podium and preach. Does yours include that? One way that you can discover that is through looking within you and trying to understand what is it that God has placed inside of you as a unique individual that appeals to you, that confirms with what your giftings, what your talents, what you feel are your potential? What is it that God has placed in you which you feel people are telling you relates really? It doesn't mean because from you are in a local congregation or because you're a part of a community that calls you pastor because you are in a seminary or because you are always active in church. That doesn't really mean that you are meant for the pulpit. I come from a tradition where as long as you've been in the seminary or as long as you are, you are sure a sign of giftings, the name they call you is a pastor. Whether if your work is to be an evangelist or you're just a preacher or you're not just, or you are a singer or you are an usher, the title becomes a pastor. So pastor, 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 joking, even without ordination, you are a pastor. So a lot of people confuse the idea of being called as only the call to pastoring. Discover yourself. Discover what people tell you. Discover what you feel you feel drawn more to. Discover what the scripture says is placed in you. Discover what it is that you feel within your heart of heart as being part of what God has called you to do. Now, when you are able to discover that, when you have discovered that, that gives you much, much, much more peace of mind to carry on that which you have been called to do. And even if it needs a public pulpit or rather a private one. So, who needs a pulpit? You can interpret it the way you like. Literally, who needs it? Or rhetorically, who needs it? Please share your thoughts and questions on the comment section because it's a new year and my desire is that we will all function in our different areas of finding fulfillment in the pursuit of what our life callings are. And I hope that 2022 is going to be that year for you and for me and for all of us. That we will see much more of who we are and what we have been called to do and live unapologetically in trying to live out what God has called us to do. Whether we understand it or we don't understand it, or we're trying one day at a time, one step at a time, trying to understand what it is. Believe me, because it's like a mentor shared with me. He said, discovering your life purpose is like walking through the psalm that says, "Thy word is a light to my feet and a lamp to my no, a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." There is both in the statement. So it is about knowing that there is a bigger light that casts a big picture, that you tend to have an idea when you're in the dark that there are things, but they are not really very clear. But then there is another light that is right there at your feet, which you would that helps you take the next step. So you discover today, probably, and then tomorrow you discover something else, but then it builds up into knowing that you are on a path somewhere. So if you are able to do that, continue to do that. Really that is some what it would take. For some, you will have a clear vision of where you are headed, and you're heading in that direction, but not everything becomes really explicitly clear because we learn to take one step at a time. So, however it is that you are discovering, whatever it is that your journey is, I'm very convinced that it involves step by step discovery of yourself as much as it depends on the discovery of what it is that you have been called to do. So 2021, 2022, 2022 is a year which we hope is going to be a year of blessing. Thank you very much for your attentiveness, and my desire is that you have a very prosperous new year. And you keep your comments coming and support and encouragement for this program and for Replica Church. I will do this always because you matter to God. So have a prosperous new year, and please keep your comments coming and your contributions. Happy New Year.